Incoming message coming from the 588.
Good morning, recruits. Welcome to hell.
This is basic training. No one's supposed to die.
Wing Women is a semi-historical actual play podcast.
Have you pissed anyone off recently?
No one I can think of. While I run through the bulleted indexed list of people we've pissed off in the last couple of days.
They endure discrimination from their male counterparts.
All of your beds have been carried out of the nurse's station and placed in the middle of the jogging track.
I don't think it was Ivan. He's weak.
Against this bitter setting, our four motley heroines gain the chance to experience queer joy, gender euphoria, and equality for the first and perhaps the only time in their lives.
How obvious am I being?
See, I've kind of always thought that there is a level to some of us in this barracks that's visible.
Have you been using the word shenanigans?
I've been experimenting.
Where did you learn that word?
Until the next mission, this is us, signing off.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletops. My name is Nick, and today we have a really special guest joining us. Nika Howard is a streamer, podcaster, and content creator, and you may know her as one of the cast members on the Greetings Adventurers podcast. She's also the co-creator of the Cast of Thrones, and you may also know her from her Twitch streams and OnlyFans. Welcome, Nika, to Tabletop. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. You made me sound so impressive, like I've done a lot.
Well, you have done a lot. Looking through all of the stuff, I was like, oh my God, this is huge. I mean, honestly, my friend group, some of whom are my co-hosts on the podcast, all are huge fans. At least 3 of them have gone to GeeklyCon a couple times, have been listening to the podcast forever. So I'm just really thrilled that we were able to talk. And can you tell me a little bit about like yourself and who you are in your own words, and then how you sort of got into the Greetings Adventurers family?
Yeah. Gosh. So it was the coldest day in February in 19 and my mom went into labor. No, we won't start that early. But I've always liked weird things or like fantasy world things.
Sure.
And all of that. And so I really liked the Lord of the Rings movies, and I was like, what if you could play Lord of the Rings? And my partner was like, you can, and it's called Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, okay, tell me all about it. So we happened to get stuck in traffic, and so then they told me everything, and I was like, I'm hooked. Let me play. So once we started playing, it's ever since then, and that was like 15 years ago now.
Yeah,
so long ago. But yeah, I started playing, and then I worked an office job like a lot of us do. And someone was like, you should listen to this podcast. And it was Drunks and Dragons. And I was like, well, this is too good. This is great. And so there I just tweeted at them like a maniac, and we became friends. Parasocial relationship to real social relationship.
This seems like a perfect place to plug the Tabletop Discord. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's like such a long running podcast. Like it started in 2012. So it's been going for over 10 years, and it has this like huge community surrounding it. How did that sort of like start? How did you guys get such a loving and connected community around this thing? I mean, like there's, you know, even like Critical Role and some of the other big podcasts, they have communities that like are together, but like you guys made a convention out of it.
Yeah. So it all just started because it was just friends. It was a group of friends who started the podcast, and then I learned about it from a group of friends. And so it was all like just these friend groups coming together to listen to the podcast. And it was tweeting and then just interacting with everyone else to be like, oh wait, your friend group is like my friend group. And then you like they tweet something, you're like, damn, that's really funny. So then you end up talking to these people online more than your actual friends, and then maybe you're not friends with your friends anymore that you learned about the podcast with, but then now you're really good friends with these internet people. And so we were like, there were two friends that were like, we got to meet, we got to get together, and they put it out there and they were planning it and talking about it on Twitter. And then more and more people just said, I want to come with you. I'm going to just show up that weekend. And that was the very first GeeklyCon. And that was, I think, after like 4 years or something, maybe like, yeah, I think like 4 or 5 years of the podcast going was whenever the first like GeeklyCon happened. And it was 50 people and we all met up in Chicago. And it was just super fun. And ever since then, it's just been growing and growing. And I think like people just bring their friends in. And because it started as a group of friends, everyone just, I don't know, the feeling of friendship continues through each new person.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a whole bunch of strangers. And there have been some folks, you know, that may not have been so great. And typically everyone looks out for everyone else. So if there's a bad apple in the bunch, they get thrown out the basket. So
yeah,
we're very, very grateful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, as somebody who's started podcasting like a year-ish ago, it is such an interesting thing to have these people who like you meet through the thing that you make, and then they're just like, oh, we really like this thing. And it turns out that since you make this thing that you're interested in and they like the thing that you make, that means that they're interested in the same things that you are. And then it becomes like a really cool, like way to meet people that you would never meet on anywhere else, really.
Yeah. And it was so fun too, because as we started like making friendships with each other and everything, then more podcasts started popping up, because it'd be like, wait, you like this? I really like this. We should start a podcast about this. So there's like, you know, a community of however many people, and then almost just as many podcasts popping up. So it was just really cool. It's like a good foundering of creative community.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm really interested in kind of picking your brain about when it comes to Greetings Adventures is that it has had this like super long life. What are the roles that you all as like the players and the creators have with interfacing with the community and kind of like growing that community? Because you know, it's like I said, it's like probably one of the most successful examples of that. I mean, like it reminds me a lot of like how PAX started, where it was everyone just liked Penny Arcade and then they went to PAX. Yeah. And now it's like this like mega corporation sort of show that happens. So what, if you kind of think back to the time where everything was kind of building, what was the role of the cast and the players and everyone in the actual podcast in kind of building that?
I think it's just everyone was like involved with it. Everyone was like making sure, like at the beginning, like we were all writing articles for the website, or we were doing videos or whatever. Like everyone was just doing everything they could to make a foundation for Geekly and for what it is now. And then interacting with people, I think, is just talking to people is like the biggest way to grow a community, and interacting with the people who listen to you. So I think that's one thing that all of us try to do pretty well about, you know, interacting with folks, because we like the show we're doing, so we want to talk about it with people. So it's fun, and I think people, like you said, people like to talk about the things that they like. So
yeah. I mean, the show is, you know, storied, and everyone probably has their specific moment. But do you have sort of this like thing from your time during the show that you're like, this is the moment that I still think of and laugh, or whatever it is?
Okay, so I have like a couple moments. I feel like the one moment whenever I had the demon binder and I rolled the nat 20 and I just immediately like got Michael's demon. I felt really bad for that, but also I was really excited to roll a nat 20 and get to use the magic item. So that was very fun.
That's the classic sort of like, hey, sorry, DM, I've totally destroyed your narrative, but I really enjoy what I'm about to do to you. So like, I'm doing it.
I appreciate the story you're trying to tell, but I'm gonna fuck it up right now. And then I also there's just a lot of I felt like a lot of like really cool like touching scenes that we've done. So it's not always been funny stuff, but it's like weird to have like really nice, memorable oh gosh, what's the word? Like more sappy emotional things. Like I know Jayla and Harper having their conversation before getting married and everything. That was one. I don't even remember everything that happened in that conversation, but I just remember it being like so real while we were doing it. And it was like, this is just what you need to say. So it wasn't even like playing characters. We were just like ourselves doing this. So I really like that. A lot of the stuff from like Jayla and Aludra was like really good. The wedding.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you haven't gotten that far.
For those who are starting from the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Please do start from the beginning. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It is fun. It's a lot. It's a lot of show.
Yes, you can spend countless hours listening to it. It's amazing. So I want to go back just a little bit to like kind of you mentioned everyone was doing everything that they could to kind of get Geekly as a kind of foundation settled. Can you tell us a little bit about what Geekly is and then eventually what GeeklyCon is? You've kind of said it has started as kind of this group of friends, but it's sort of morphed into something a little bit, I mean, it's still that, but it's also morphed into something a little bit more expansive. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. So Geekly Inc. Is the brainchild of Tim and Michael. And they came together as two friends, as friends do whenever they have a common interest. They decided to start something, and they wanted it to be a website where they could just like talk about nerd news, things that were going on in games. Michael was doing thrifty nerd deals at the time, so it was a way to generate more eyes on his account and everything like that. And from there, it just morphed, and it went from being articles and videos about news, and then podcasts about different nerd topics. There's a Call of Cthulhu podcast, just general variety podcast, television show podcast, stuff like that. So then it kind of came more than just a website. It became like a podcast network website. And then that's whenever kind of GeeklyCon started happening. So now it's like a convention podcast network website. So it kind of like is I think of it as a one-stop shop for your Geekly needs. You need a friend. We got a Discord. You need a show to listen to because you're bored. We've got so many podcasts and YouTube videos to watch or Twitch streams to watch. So I feel like there's always something going on. It's the geek to fill your needs. The Geekly to fill your needs. I don't know. I'm not going to try to come up with like a...
I was really expecting you to be like, so it started out as like, I guess it's a podcast network and now it's a mega corporation.
We're actually rivaling Penny Arcade. WotC is sending us royalty checks.
There you go. One other thing that I kind of want to get to before we really dive into the meat of our conversation, which I think is going to be what we were talking about off mic, which was about how mental health and TTRPGs kind of like cross. I wanted to ask you, as somebody who has been part of this sort of podcast that's been so successful for so long and has grown into so many things, do you have any recommendations for folks who are trying to make like their game a podcast, or if they're trying to start getting into like the more entertainment side of the TTRPG landscape?
Of course. I think, okay, so everyone, you start a game and you have fun and you're like, let's make a podcast. One, it's a great idea because I think if you are doing something that you think is fun and you want to make a podcast about it, do it. It's going to be a blast. You guys are going to have an awesome time. make sure you have good audio. It doesn't have to be expensive audio. I know if you start looking at audio equipment, there are microphones that are several $100s, several $1,000s. You don't need that. You can get like a Snowball Yeti. I think those are relatively cheap.
Like $36.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There's easy things, but your sound quality is going to be extremely important, because if you have an awesome podcast, but no one can understand it, or the quality is bad, or there's other issues, no one's going to listen to it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is start a podcast to have fun. Don't start a podcast to make money or anything like that, because chances are you probably won't make money off your podcast. But if you do it to have fun, then you're always going to be successful.
It's that psychic income.
Yes. Yeah. It's filling up the emotional bank within you, not the financial bank online. And
honestly, like that, I think is such a huge thing that I think everyone I've talked to that has some sort of like project going, it's just like you have to start it just because you like to do it, because it's going to be a long time before anybody really like, grasps onto it as like, oh, this thing that I love, because it takes a lot of, kind of, it could take years of just sort of doing this thing that you like. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like nowadays with TikTok and a whole bunch of the social medias, it's really easy to catch like a viral moment and like immediately go big, but that happens so very rarely and to so few people. It is luck of the draw to get something like that. And so more than likely it's going to be a lot of hard work, and for a while no one might listen. And and that's fine. It's not anything on you, but it's just there's so many things, there's so many different medias out there that they just haven't found you yet. Mm-hmm. So don't give up, just have fun and start a podcast that sounds good.
Doing all of us a favor. But I also, I think that I heard something one time a long time ago that I thought was very like an interesting way to look at it, which is that yes, it requires luck to get, something going and something big. But you can do your best to be ready for that luck by doing something, making sure that you're like working on it, that you understand what you're doing, getting better at the thing you're doing. Like you said, have good audio quality, so that when that viral moment hits, or if, that like, viral whatever happens to you and you have that luck going, that you have this beautiful thing that you've worked really hard on already, so that you're ready for the luck. So I think that's a really good way to put it.
And consistency also, if you get down or whatever, you're like, no one's listening, still release your episodes, because consistency is key. It's key, whichever word you want to use, be consistent and make something good. I don't know. Other than that, just have fun. No. Just make a good podcast. It's not that hard.
Yeah, just do it. All right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And then after, we're going to really dive into TTRPGs and mental health.
All right, guys. What do we want to talk about for the commercial?
Maybe the hot dog is a sandwich kind of a thing?
No, that's stupid, man. Everyone knows a hot dog is not a sandwich.
All right. What do you want to do then?
Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about. UFOs.
So my toilet Mike Tyson was telling me the other day that you can survive a zombie apocalypse in a PetSmart.
Dude, are you okay?
Yeah, what was that?
I'm sorry. I don't even know what's happening right now. I've been listening to our podcast a lot recently, and it's a ton. What's going on?
All right, I'm just going to make this easy. Hey, y'all, we are the hosts of Master and Debaters, the podcast that debates all of life's silly questions. Join us every week as we present our hardest opinions on the softest topics. I'm Puck, and football is the worst sport.
I'm Alex, and a hot dog is absolutely a sandwich.
I'm Spencer, and the Beatles suck.
This is Master and Debaters. Find us wherever you get podcasts, and as always, stay mad.
All right, we're back with Tabletop. We're here with Nika Howard today. We've been talking a lot about GeeklyCon and Geekly Incorporated and all the podcasts that she's been part of. And now we're going to really dive into our subject matter of today. Nika, you were talking to me a little bit off mic about how TTRPGs have had a huge effect on your sort of like relationship with mental health throughout the years. And I'm really interested because I actually have a lot to say on this as well. So I'm really interested by what is your relationship in that way, and like how do they affect each other? What have been your experience with this?
So I got into role playing, not necessarily, I won't say like a time whenever I needed it in that kind of like mental health space, but it definitely became something that was therapeutic for me whenever I was having more, I don't want to say distressing, but like more serious mental health issues. And mostly, for me, it was a lot of dealing with depression, a lot of that and anxiety, and being able to play out scenarios that were things I would worry about in real life, but not have to worry about it. Or I could play it out in a role-playing game and see that it didn't actually affect me, so it wouldn't have any consequence on me, or see that afterwards things were okay. Okay, so what if that bad thing happened?
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do? You're not just going to quit. You're going to find a plan. You're going to come up with something else. So it gave me a way to see outside of what the situation is and be able to handle what that situation was in a more like removed way.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, there's a whole kind of genre of theater that's based on this. It's called Theater of the Oppressed. And the entire kind of like theory behind it is that you can't really prepare yourself for everything, but what you can do is put yourself in a place where you actually build practical skills so that when a situation happens to you, you will have reference points that you can pull from, and you know that you can get through it. So exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Theater of the Oppressed usually ends up being a little bit like bigger scale. It's like it is a personal level, but it's also like, if you are experiencing structural racism or something, you have, acted through some of these scenarios before, and one, that you can get through it, but two, that like you have some tools that you can start to deploy based on that.
A very basic one, like a fire drill, maybe, is that kind of like.
Yeah, it's very much, it's like building those like neural pathways so that it becomes
it's like you hear that and you're
easier.
like, oh, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, it's time to go. So yeah, and I also have had kind of a similar experience because I also have that wonderful cocktail of depression and anxiety. So
it's wonderful. It goes together so well.
Like peanut butter and chocolate, baby. But yeah, I've also been in those places, and I think that what I really love about TTRPGs is that they require you to like stretch your empathy muscle, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm sort of drawn to rules light TTRPGs, like Powered by the Apocalypse and some other stuff like that, just because it is all about sort of both the imagination, but it also is about how empathetic or how in tune can you be with the situation. Whereas something a little bit more like static, like more board game-esque, kind of removes that empathetic nature from it in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do feel like in those, and Pathfinder is kind of the same because it is extremely rules heavy, but if you have someone who lets you RP a lot through story or whatever, you can still kind of get the same thing.
Yeah.
But being able to react what feels naturally in some of those situations is so nice, and it's like so freeing, and like then it allows you to see like, okay, so this is what my natural reaction is, and this is the outcome. I can trust myself in the decisions I'm making.
Yeah, I also think that it's a really great way to kind of try stuff on. Like for me, I feel like my first character was like very, his name was Bill Stabums. He was a rogue. He did very, like I talked when I was doing my turns and everything, I'd be talking about Bill in the third person and like had a much more detached kind of like nature to it. And eventually was able to slowly kind of start trying it on for size and like try to be like, okay, this is what Bill would do and this is what Nick would do. They're separate, but I'm going to kind of like start mashing them together a little bit.
Yes.
Which was really great. It allowed me to explore a lot of things. Like I think that it helped me explore, you know, identity, gender, sexuality, also like morality a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're playing a rogue, for sure. Because are you going to steal everything?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that it's like so important and like such an underutilized part of TTRPGs. And like I know a lot of people who would just sort of like kind of brush off some of the bigger social projects that are using TTRPGs these days. Like I know that there's a program that runs D&D for inmates in prisons, and I know that there's programs where like one of our listeners and a guest of the pod, Liz, does a lot of like work with kids and you know, other people who need something as an outlet to sort of kind of express themselves.
Is that oh gosh, I can't remember what their Twitter is, but there's someone that is in the Geekly community, and their job is doing D&D games as ways to learn how to cope with different emotions and situations and feelings. And it's so cool.
Yeah, so her Twitter handle is Liz Favtastic.
Oh no, this is a different person.
Oh, see, a lot of people.
Okay, yeah. Damn, a lot of good people out there.
Yeah, and so I'm super sympathetic to what you're saying about how mental health and TTRPGs sort of coincide. So what are some of your experiences like as a tool? Have you used it in times of sort of like, not like you said, I hate to use the word crisis, but like mental crisis, or like
it's like hard because
it's
like,
hard, yeah.
Use, but
but is there tools that you have like found really useful, or through TTRPGs have you come to any conclusions or anything like that?
Okay, so one thing is like one of my favorite things is that I grew up in a household where like I could not be confrontational. It was you just agree with what your parents say and all of that. And so if there's any situations with confrontation, I'm very, very bad at them. So having confrontation in D&D games is extremely good for me because I get the opportunity to like figure out what kind of mad person I want to be. Or like usually it's not a very mad person because I still have that real great people pleaser quality.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting to like practice that almost. So then there's been times where I have felt the confidence to be able to stand up for myself or like set a boundary because I've like done it. Again, this is falling into the repressed. I've done it a few times. And so I now have like my brain can like click over and be like, no, this is what you need to do instead of the retreat back in and everything.
Yeah.
Gosh. I do think also I have to be with you on like figuring out your sexuality is honestly, it's like goes hand in hand with playing D&D. I think learning the rules, you learn it because you just like you learn things as you're playing this. You're like seeing these different characters, and I think because they're not represented in the ways that we traditionally see them, it's easier just to be attracted to like the idea of something or like a different thing.
Yeah, because
it's unfamiliar. So you expand your horizons and your imaginations a little bit.
Yeah, one of my co-hosts, Franco, was once saying like, because I ran a campaign where he was playing a woman who had sort of like two love interests. One was like an awful person, one was like a little bit of a better person, and so it was like interesting to see her kind of be choosing between these people and all that. And we were having this talk about how sometimes it can be really awkward for like some people can find it very awkward to DM romance for their friends or their strangers and things like that. And he was like, yeah, I kind of just viewed it as like, oh, I wouldn't want to date Nick. And I was like, yeah, that probably makes sense, because you do get like there's like a lot of like vulnerability when you're doing that kind of stuff. So it's whether you want to or not, it's gonna kind of reveal something about you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I was going to say one thing too is social situations, just like practicing conversation in role playing and playing a character is so much helpful for if you're like a very socially anxious or awkward person. You can kind of just pretend like you're going to play this persona of yourself. And because you've role played your character, you can like, you already have like the basic tools of like what you need to do and everything. So I feel like it's definitely helped me in different social situations where I've been like, I would like to go home. And then it's like, no, you're going to put on your little bard hat and you're going to go and you're going to entertain people.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I love it. I love D&D.
Yeah. It's amazing. We are all here because of what, the house that TTRPGs have built us. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
But one thing that I want to kind of dig in a little bit more on is that you were saying how, you put on the different hats and everything like that. But have you found that when you play characters that something about you comes out that is like, because I feel like everybody has like the character that if no other impulses are put on them, they just kind of like very easily slide into. For me, it's like, think later, all charisma, no morality, sort of like just a pure id. But what about you? What is the thing that you just immediately with when the barriers are down, who does Nika role play?
I feel like my instant go-to is basically like Lonnie. So it is gonna be, it was a character that I did for Dungeons and Dragons, and she was very not intelligent is the good way to say it. She's not intelligent, but she has little bits of wisdom that come out through humor, and usually some weird attribute. And all of my characters have that to some extent. I feel like that is just, each character has a different like aspect of myself in it, but all of my characters have some sort of, they may not be super wise or they may not be super smart all the time, but they're gonna have something that is like a good advice. They're gonna be loyal to the party, and we're gonna make you laugh. They're gonna try to make you laugh. They're gonna do some stupid shit.
Do you feel like with that description, I'm putting on my psychologist hat now. Do you think that with that description that you see that as like core attributes if you were to look at yourself, or do you feel as though those are like completely out of the blue, don't know where they come from kind of thing?
No, I think that those are absolutely like, one time in therapy, my therapist had me write down like basically do this like fantasy football bracket.
Listen, I've been listening to a lot of like director's commentary about Final Fantasy VII, and I really need you to tell me what you think of that game.
But my therapist was just really into Sephiroth. But they had me write down in these like fantasy football brackets of like what are the different traits that I have, and typically traits that I value in myself and that I think highly are like loyalty and like humor and curiosity. And I do think that that's what comes in to like the very basis of each of my characters have that.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a good way to like think about your traits. If you are having a hard time coming up with a character or you're making a character for the first time, think about the traits that you exude and like the first 3 traits that you think someone would describe you as. Use those to make a character and go from there.
Totally. I just really quickly want to ruin this really beautiful sentiment with just the image I can't get out of my head of like walking into a therapist's office and just having like Cloud's like huge sword like up the
Listen, I mean, I'd never leave.
Be like, what's that about?
That's the therapist I want.
Yeah, exactly. But back to what you were saying, because I just had to get that out. But back to what you were saying, I think that it is a really beautiful way of thinking about it too. And the thing that I hope for myself a lot of the times in the way I kind of think about it is that it's practice being the person you want to be.
Yeah.
You can be the hero. You're in everyday life, you are capable of doing heroic things. And I think
Absolutely.
that in a lot of ways, building a character, that's why I suggest everybody start out with a character that is maybe a little bit closer to themselves, because and some people are I don't want to be myself. I want to be someone completely different. And it's yeah, but I bet that you are going to be surprised about what you get up to eventually.
Yeah. Or how much, if you start playing a character that's so different from yourself, I feel like you will find things about that character that yourself starts bleeding in through.
Yeah.
Because it's so foreign. It is foreign to play something that's totally different from what you naturally do. And so unless you're making the conscious choice all the time, a little bit of your personality is going to come through.
Yeah.
Because you are playing the character.
Yeah. And I've always thought of it as just a really kind of aspirational thought of I am getting practice being the best version of myself. This is the hero that I could be. This is why, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. This is why I've always been fascinated by evil campaigns. I have very little in me that when I play Mass Effect or whatever, I couldn't even do renegade options. I couldn't, I always am the goody two shoes in every game. Any Star Wars game, I'm always super light side. So I'm really, and my friend Shade, another one of our co-hosts, a Geekly Con attendee as well, he's always been very similar. When we were both playing through Red Dead Redemption 2, we were okay, how do we make the best possible version of Arthur Morgan? And I know that but I also know that is such a non-majoritarian viewpoint. I have seen, especially on YouTube or whatever, people being so chaotic evil all the time. So what is your thoughts on evil campaigns, what that does, and whether that is a helpful thing or a non-helpful thing, I guess?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to say one thing that I really love. I have extremely bad intrusive thoughts. They happen all the time.
Yeah.
And not all of them are the cute fuzzy ones that, are just you should pet your dog for 20 minutes. I don't know if people have intrusive thoughts like that, but I don't know. Mine aren't that way. So sometimes role-playing games can be a way to let intrusive thoughts win. And evil games can be a way to do that. Or maybe not necessarily evil, but I like Call of Cthulhu games for this, where you can make decisions that are bad and are going to have a bad outcome, but you're I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to have any consequences, or I don't want to deal with the consequences in a realistic way. And I think that having evil campaigns or less than good morality campaigns are good for those outlets.
Yeah.
I've personally never played in an evil campaign that's been more than a 1 or 2 shot, because no one wants to run them.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is because if you run, people want to play evil characters as just I'm going to go slash everyone, and I'm just going to, and that's not a fun way to play an evil character. I think a much more fun way to play an evil character is think of Game of Thrones. All of those characters are evil as shit. No one is a good person.
Yeah.
And you are captivated each time, and you still find yourself wanting them to win at the end. And so I think if you play evil campaigns, do it, but set some guidelines for your characters or for your players. So no interplayer, maybe not necessarily backstabbing, but don't let the party kill themselves. That gets you nothing. But I think that they're fun. I think it's a good outlet for having a way to do things that you would never do in real life.
Yeah, I guess that thinking about it through that kind of lens, it is a way to... I've always had this thought that the reason why people really love playing chaotic characters, whether it be good or evil or whatever, is that in our normal life, we have to follow so many rules and regulations, whether it be social, societal or whatever, natural law, I guess. But it can feel very much like I don't have any options. Like the things that I want to do are very limited. And so then when you're kind of opened up into this big, fantasy game that your friends are running for you, you can just be like, I'm a murder hobo. I'm going to go do all this like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So like in that way, it can be very freeing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess that's true. That is like another way to kind of like express some of, I really like the way you put it of like expressing intrusive thoughts in like a good way, essentially. It's and it can also be a way of like, I'm going to express these intrusive thoughts. And then you're like kind of penalized for them. And then you're like, that's what would happen.
You're like, this is why we don't do that in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why they stay all locked up in here.
Yeah. Another kind of question I wanted to run by you when it comes to sort of like this like interplay, I guess, between emotionality and mental like health, I guess, and mental identity with games is how do you play high lethality campaigns? It's been something that we've been kind of talking about just like amongst my Discord and also my friends. I'm actually in one right now and I'm finding it actually really rewarding because it takes out the kind of feeling of I have to make the right choice here for the group. Like I ultimately have to do the thing that will get us through this like encounter or whatever. And in this campaign, I can be like, no, I can make that stupid, but like kind of, martyr-ish action that will make me remembered by this entire town, but I'm going to die. And like, that's okay. And like, that's part of the game. So it takes some of that pressure off as well. So like, Have you ever played high lethality campaigns? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I was just going to say, you used a word there. I have no clue what it is. I was going to ask you for more clarification. I've not played that, but I get the feeling that it's maybe like a Call of Cthulhu game. The inevitable is that your character's probably not going to survive or it's not going to be great. So you might as well do what you can while you can do it.
Yeah, it's sort of, so high lethality is just like the DM, you roll up and he's like, did you make 3 characters like I asked you to?
Okay, yes. Yep, Call of Cthulhu. That's how I play Call of Cthulhu. And I do play it differently than I play D&D. Because like for Greetings Adventures, I try to think out like what I do, is that more than just is that within what my character would do. What is this going to do long term? Is this going to be something that progresses the story? Is this going to be something that could be interesting we could come to later on? But if it's Call of Cthulhu, I'm like, it is my let the intrusive thoughts win game.
Yeah.
And I just want to do whatever, even if I know it's a bad idea, I want to do it because it's the opportunity to do it. And I know that you're going to go crazy or you're going to die in Call of Cthulhu. So it's not if it happens, it's when it happens.
And
so you might as well have fun while you can. Yeah. But they're so freeing, those games. Oh, I love them.
Yeah. Like I said, one of the games I'm in right now is that essentially, and I've already run through 2 characters and had vastly different experiences with both of them. Like the first one was this like blacksmith in a world that like iron can dispel magic essentially because of a wish that somebody cast. Cool. And so nobody really is allowed to have iron anymore because that's like the government's thing. And so as a blacksmith, he can't really make a living anymore because nobody wants copper armor or whatever. It's just not really the thing anymore. So he lost his like smithy and became this like person who's just like a tinkerer essentially. And through the course of like 2 sessions, he like kind of took on this like life of crime, but then in the end did the right thing for this town. And it was like a really beautiful thing. And then my next character was like this guy who got kicked out of the wrestling guild of something. And he was like obsessed with getting back, like everyone, like I'll show everyone because they're all stupid and I'm the best performer ever. And he got sucked away by a demon because he was like, yeah, I hate all these people. All I want is to be the biggest star ever. And so screw all these people. I'm going to go with you, demon man, who said that you can make all my wishes come true. So it's like this really like I think it allows you to really, I don't know, be open in a way that sometimes I think that longer campaigns aren't as free with because you just need that continuity.
Yes. Yeah. There's different aspects you get to think of in shorter campaigns.
Yeah.
Or those campaigns that fancy word you used.
Lethality. So one question as we kind of bring this conversation to a close, one thing I want to kind of talk to you about is you were talking about people exploring their sexuality and all that. And I kind of want to expand on that to people who are feeling a little bit, set aside from the norm, people who feel like they don't quite fit in or whatever it could be, using like going to TTRPGs, especially now that they're getting so popular, as a way to sort of like use them in the way that we've been talking about. Do you have any sort of advice or tips, tricks, things that you learned along the way that you think can make these people feel more comfortable with how they play TTRPGs or can immerse themselves in a more fun way?
Oh gosh, I feel like the hardest thing, I think for probably 90% of people, the hardest thing is to actually play your character as your character and not say, okay, Rourke is going to do this, this, and this, instead of just being like, as your character, saying the things in whatever voice, or, maybe you don't have a voice for your character, whatever. But actually role playing is the hardest, but it is the most rewarding part of it. And so I say, go in there and role play your little ass off. Even if you are so socially awkward or you think that you're going to be the biggest dork or it's a nerd, the best things happen whenever you role play, and you're going to have more fun. You're going to get a better experience out of it. And it's just, I don't know. I think it just changes the game from playing a game to creating an experience and having a story that you make with other people. And that's what D&D is. At least for me, D&D is getting to hang out with my friends and make a story that is fun. It has bits of ourselves in it, and it tells overall it tells a silly, stupid message.
Yeah.
But it is like it's a fun thing, and I don't know, just go and put your whole ass in something. Don't half-ass it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. One of the big things, I went to acting school. Don't think less of me, but
no, that's cool.
Oh, cool. But the main thing that you do for essentially like 4 years is them just like slowly stripping out the self-consciousness out of you, and so that you can just like do the thing that you're going to do on stage or in front of the camera or whatever it is. Like, and what you just said there, like, man, if you can just let yourself, the like little person on your shoulder that's watching you play, that we all have that kind of director in our mind. If you can just like quiet that down for a little bit and really just like immerse yourself, it's so much fun.
It is. And
it's freeing.
I do think that is why several people drink while they play TTRPGs. I know that it definitely helps me get like more, because I still get nervous playing characters, or there's sometimes where I'll be like, oh, I don't want to, that's like too much. I can't do that. But then you have like a drink and you're like, nah, shit, I'm going to do anything. So if you are nervous, maybe have a little sippy sip, responsibly, and loosen up and get a little silly.
Yeah.
Just have fun.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing there too is like, just find a group of people that you don't mind being a little bit embarrassing with, which is most of our close friends anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Like we all have those friends that we've probably said or done something really embarrassing with. Get them to play D&D with you, and then you have no reason not to just go full, like, all out on everything.
Exactly. Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation, but before we like wrap it up, I want to kind of talk a little bit about you, your projects. What are you doing right now? What should people know about you?
Well, I don't know.
Great. Thank you for listening to the Tabletop Podcast.
There's not a lot. I like a little snack at night. I prefer several little treats during the day. No, I am currently playing Dungeons and Dragons with Greetings Adventures. We do stream every Tuesday over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Geekly Inc. And then on Sundays, I play Call of Cthulhu with Cthulhu and Friends. And we also stream over on the same Twitch. But outside of that, I'm trying to get into streaming more myself. I do really bad with it, with like social energy and stuff like that. But I spend a lot of time on my spicy site, OnlyFans, or social media. Just I spend a lot of time on the internet. I touch grass frequently, but I do spend a lot of time on the internet.
Not as frequently as I go online. Yeah, I feel that. But what are your social handles so people can find you?
Perfect. You can find me on Twitter at Nika_Howard, or on Instagram at the Nika Howard. I also have in the link in my bio for all of those is my link tree. So then there you can find my free page, OnlyFans. I have a VIP page. I've got the information for the podcast up there if you want to find I think it's our Patreon. And some other stuff like that. Check it out. I've got like 20 different links there. Every place I am on every part of the internet. So
can confirm it's a lengthy link tree. It has everything. All right, and last but not least, the final question: where are you gonna go when Twitter implodes?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I guess I don't know, because technically, since Threads is attached to my Instagram, I have more people I can interact with on Threads, but Blue Sky feels like the better one because it's more like Twitter. And now that Health Thread is gone, I can actually like use it and read things, and it just seems better. But I forget to use it. I don't know. I've been on Twitter for like, oh my God, like 15 years. So
it's like an IV of Twitter straight into your veins.
It really is. Like, I don't know that I can get rid of Twitter. So I'll be on that platform till it dies. And then maybe Instagram. Awesome. I'm just going to give up on that.
Well, Nika, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. You're always welcome back on Tabletop anytime you want.
Thank you. Of course. This has been so much fun.
You're now friend of the podcast, so you have all the privileges that allows you.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.